Hey there, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is Talking to Myself, the part of the day where I talk to myself about things that I was thinking the night before while laying in bed. Shout out, of course, to Saratoga Peanut Butter, Lotus Flame Counter Company, Kings of Leon, Los Angeles Dodgers, Rob Palinka, and Rob We Trust. As well, shout out, of course, to all 1,020 of you guys that are following me at the time of making this video. So I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys getting me across that 1,000 follower mark so that I could actually monetize videos. So I'll get a little bit extra kickback in cash. I understand that it's nothing personal, but I mean, I like to get paid too. Okay, so because I forgot to do this, I was going to do it at the very beginning, but I forgot, so we're doing it right now. So excuse the audio, excuse the video, but the winners, I decided to just cut it early because what's waiting another week gonna do? I didn't really care to wait that long. So the winner of the photo jumper is Jay Wanger, Jwanger, and the sling is Rick Marquez. So if you guys are watching, you guys have until Sunday at 5 p.m. to reach out to me at drosa.jpg on Instagram and prove that it's you and basically claim your prize. So again, and if you don't do it by Sunday, then I just redraw. So just reach out and good job. What I'm recording today is actually on the X Pro 3 and the 35mm f1.4. And for those of you who've been watching the channel, you know that that's actually the camera that I recorded probably about 50% of my videos on for a while. And it was something I was actually really content with. But then I got an opportunity to actually help shoot a documentary called The Road to 702. I was bringing my own gear. I was having to go out on my own to interview some people and things like that. And as much as I wanted to use the X Pro 3, I wanted the second body to be able to record all that stuff, plus some real estate things and so on and what have you. Now, as I was going through this, I was thinking between the X-T4, the X-T3, and the X-H1. The X-H1 had 90% of what the X-T4 offers. The only thing different is the new battery, which is supposedly longer lasting. I haven't ever felt the difference. And even more than that, there's no LCD screen or paper light screen at the top of the X-T4. And there's of course the fact that there is a new processor in the X-T4, which makes it apparently better for autofocus. But again, when it comes to IBIS, when it comes to megabits per second, when it comes to weather sealing, all identical, and I just couldn't see myself spending the extra cash to get to the X-T4. So it was between the X-T3 and the X-H1, and the only thing the X-T3 really had over the X-H1 was the fact that it had HLG, and the only thing that the X-H1 had over the X-T3 was the fact that it had IBIS. And when I started thinking about IBIS, I realized I didn't really need it because I kind of like the look of handheld shooting and I've gotten pretty steady at it. Then there's also the fact that, a lot of my work would probably be on a tripod, and the weather sealing and everything's the same. You can get a battery grip, same battery, so I thought the X-T3 is a winner. But then along that same lines, I thought, what really is the upgrade to the X-T3 over the X-T2? With firmware updates, you're able to have F-Log in the X-T2. You can get 4K recording in F-Log, and in 1080, you can also get F-Log in your recordings. Even more, I learned about the battery grip and learned about the file limitation as far as recording, and I kind of priced them out and realized the X-T2 would be more than enough for what I need to do. And with that, I birthed the X-T2 and my entire X-T2 rig. All this together, everything you see here, the phone I already had, this is an old Essential phone. All this together, the whole rig, cost me only $680 for this exact same rig, for me to build it out piece by piece with an X-T3 for what I was pricing at. Probably would have cost me around $1,200 because I actually got this small rig cage, this handle, and all the accessories you see right here, and I already had this mic laying around. It's only $28 anyway, so I'll count that into it and say it was a $700 rig. All this right here together, because you can use your own phone, as far as the cage and everything, I actually got with the X-T2 body, and it was only for around $500. And for 2 extra batteries that I bought, OEM batteries, and the battery grip, that actually brought the price just a little bit under $680 total. Now, right now it has a 90mm f2 on it, and this is actually one of the run and gun styles that I have. It even came with this thumb grip in the very, very back right here. I really enjoy this whole setup. The X-T2 has actually been very good for what I've been doing. I'm actually going to show you a kind of a promo that I put together very quickly. I had a quick one-day turnaround. I need to work on it again. for a thing called the Road to the 702 that I'm working on. This was after only one shoot with just the B-roll that I had. I was able to get someone getting a nice cinematic conversation, teaching some young bull riders exactly, you know, the ropes about everything. But yeah, this guy right here has been fantastic for all that. So I'll show you that video. I'll tell you the 2 clips that were actually from the X-T4, because I didn't end up getting to use the X-T4 because I kept having lockup in 4K 24. And even worse, I never even got to try the slow-mo because I kept getting lockup. That's why Fujifilm ended up sending me a second X-T4 body, and that's actually why, one of the reasons why I don't even want that body. But again, between those two, this did everything that it needed to do, and I'll explain where the X-T4 failed and where this one actually shined.
If I'm better than I was last time, like I said, I'm getting that closer to greatness. Everybody else stuff don't matter to me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, we homeboys and everything. Like I said, I'm happy for you, but I gotta work on myself. Because if I can't work on myself, I can't better myself. I can't worry about you so much, and how am I worry about you and I can't worry about myself? You know what I'm saying? I always try to teach people. You came out before like I don't want to teach nobody to be better than nobody else. You gotta be better than yourself to be better than anybody. You know what I'm saying? Because if you ain't better than yourself, how can you be better than somebody else? There ain't gonna be no doubt in mine. Don't never put yourself against somebody else. I don't care if y'all boxing each other. Okay, I threw that last punch kind of slow. Let me do this a bit faster. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing, babu, everything, but it's everything in your mind. Don't never compete with nobody, because if you try to compete with somebody, you always gonna be looking out for somebody else instead of looking out for yourself.
I'm Dennis Davis. You can catch me on the road to 702.
So I showed you that video, and I hope you actually liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, it was something I put together really quickly. The footage needs to be color graded a little bit more. It was a kind of a dark, grungy look is what they wanted. Not the way I would chose to color grade it, but it worked out for what it would needed to do in a night where I just had to turn it around really quickly because they wanted something to show a couple of people as far as for sponsorship. And the 2 clips that were actually used that were from the X-T4 were actually the last clip of the bull rider where I had to grade it even harder, and that was because in the X-T4 for some reason it didn't save my white balance setting and it switched to auto white balance. So I actually had some transitions between auto white balance from cold to warm, and it just looked horrible. The second one was actually just a really quick clip where one of the bull riders was tightening his rope, and he punched his fist, and that's it. Everything else was actually shot on the X-T2 using a 70-300, using an 18mm f2, or using a 16-55 f2.8. Everything else, again, was shot with the X-T2. That's all 4K or 1080p. Everything that I've been shooting since is 4K or 1080p. And this camera in 2021 will surprise a lot of people just because it doesn't have the amazing new features and it's like a few years old. Everyone really likes to shit on old cameras as if these things automatically went brain dead. As someone who actually said in the comments, which is brilliant, we act like cameras after 1 or 2 years go brain dead once a new series comes out and they can't be used and they're no longer professional at all for anything that you need. Now again, I've got to tell you, I'm using this camera professionally. Does this mean this will always be my camera? No. Are there times where I'm like, man, you know what, I wish I had the X-H1 instead? Yes. Are there times where I grabbed the X-T4 and thought, man, I should have really invested in the X-T4? Of course. But at the same time, this camera is doing everything I needed to do. Now, this is a video-only camera. When it comes to stills, I can tell you, if it's doing anything other than portraits, if you're shooting sports or weddings, I wouldn't recommend this camera. But again, I just gotta say, if you're shooting manual focus photos for sports or for weddings, this camera is still gonna be a beast and a badass. Even more than that, this camera for portrait shoots, for e-commerce, for food photography, for macro, any kind of thing like that, this is still going to be a fantastic camera. And this is a bargain. Again, I got the body for $500 with the cage, not with the grip, but let me put it that way. The body and the grip with 2 extra batteries, if you don't even count all the stuff that it was given to me as part of the sale, the body and the grip, and let's not count anything else, and the 2 batteries was only $676. That is a hell of a still, especially considering all the camera you're getting. You're still getting 4K, you're still getting 1080p, you're still getting F-Log in both of those, you're still getting 100 megabits per second. And you're still getting really nice mom files that you can edit. Even more than that, the focus, whenever it's center autofocus, is fantastic. I never have any hunting, I never have any jumping. As soon as I'm back in, it immediately goes back to me. Now I have for this, the settings on this, I always have double my shutter speed or double my frame rate or whatever in the world it is. But also I have it set on sensitivity tracking for number 4 or number 5 at all times. And it's pretty snappy. I never really hear the 35mm 1.4 chirp the way that I do on the X Pro 3. Now again, one of the things that I said about the X-T4 and why I feel like it failed was because the algorithms are computing so hard and the processors are computing so hard, it's constantly competing to try to find my eye, and I feel like that's why you get that chirp. That's why I feel like sometimes in the X Pro 3 I get chirp or I get missed, or sometimes it would hunt in backlighting situations like this potentially has the opportunity to be, because the algorithm really wants to just impress me and find the face, find the eye. And this just says, shit, if it's in front of me, I'm gonna record it. So again, with my rig, I've got on a TAKSTAR SGC 598, a fantastic microphone. Sounds amazing. It's actually the one that I'm recording on right now, and it's still recording and going. I have on there also a nice little $5 Arca Swiss mount, a quick release plate from Amazon with a nice $5 cell phone holder that has an Arca Swiss mount, basically cut and groove on the bottom of it to hold a cell phone. This little monitor holder from Small Rig came with me from the sale. I don't know how much it is, as well as this handle and this Small Rig cage. It also came with this nice LensMate thumb grip on the back, which really helps. And I also have a couple grips for it to be able to stabilize my images even more. And there are times with this, I have the Fujifilm neck strap. I actually use that to hold that around my neck whenever I'm carrying this. That all together makes up this whole thing. Now I use the Fujifilm app because there are times where I don't record an F-log, especially whether it's for family or if it's just running and gunning or low light, and really the F-log wouldn't do me any good. For those of you that don't know, if you're recording in low light and you can't add enough artificial light, there is no need to record and log. It'll actually kind of cause damage to your image and introduce a lot more grain if you don't know how to adjust an F-log. So there are some times where I could just go ahead and I put on the classic chrome look, and I use this as my monitor when I'm walking around and running and gunning, or I use this just to set up my image and just have it there. So this is strictly for video. And again, I just got to tell you, there are a few things that stand out with the X-T2. Number one is the fact that it's got a nice rugged build and that I can get a battery grip on it, and altogether it feels really good in the hand, especially whenever I'm shooting and I've got something on me. I've got this nice grip on there, or I've got a big lens on there, the 16 to 55, the 50 to 140. It just feels good, and it feels weighty, and it feels beefy. Even if I didn't have all the accessories, this cage on there, it would feel nice and beefy. I love that about it. The second thing that I'm really liking about this is center autofocus with this camera. If I just set it to center, or if I'm focusing manually, which a lot of times you guys have to remember, for a lot of us shooting video, doing videography and our work in production and stuff like that, we didn't really rely on autofocus systems. There are even times, honestly, whenever we're using Canon C300s, where we're using, instead of center focus continuous, we're using one shot, to where we judge the distance and we said, okay, we're gonna be here at 5.6. We'll just do one shot, and we know that we can get him good to a certain point, and we had our marks where we switched to the second camera to pick him up, which is also on one shot. So I'm using that same principle here, to where I know if I'm shooting at an f4 at 5.6, I know where I can move to and go. And if I'm shooting at f2 at 1.8 on the 50mm 1.4 or 35mm 1.4, if I'm shooting on a 16 to 55 at 2.8, center focus continuous doesn't ever miss. It's continually going and moving and grooving. Now again, I have issues when trying to shoot photos on this thing and trying to use continuous focus. But on the video end, I'm never struggling whatsoever. This is a fantastic video camera. And that's one thing that I've got to say is Fujifilm didn't set out for this to be a video camera. Actually, upon release, didn't even have F-Log. But with the updates, being able to upgrade the F-Log for not only 4K, but also 1080 with the grip, and also to being able to record for 30 minutes continuous with this grip in 4K whenever you have it on, that's a big deal. And honestly, that is a fantastic kind of example of how Fujifilm is continually trying to better their products and their legacy products, not for the benefit of themselves, but for the benefit of their customers and consumers. Because you got to think about it, they're smart on that. If you can upgrade bodies and people have to spend less on them, they have more money to spend on your glass, which is what you're really making your money on, because you have people that stick with the body for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and they're not upgrading every year like, you know, certain full frame users who are under the impression that if you don't have the newest body, your shit isn't going to work. But these guys Fujifilm has done a great job of realizing that lenses are where we're going to make our money, and as we put out new lenses, and if people can save because they've already paid off their body or they're getting a used body, look at all they're going to be able to buy from us. So fantastic, especially because their lenses are so cheap compared to the competitors for the equivalent. Now this thing isn't without its quirks. It's falling apart a little bit. The rubber is coming off. I've had to super glue some things on there. Again, it's not the fastest autofocusing. If you're the kind of person that wants autofocusing, you don't want to use center autofocusing, you want it to track people across the room, it's not going to do that. But I do have some test footage of me jumping from person to person and how quickly it focuses. Again, it's not going to focus like that when it comes to photos, especially whenever there's not a whole bunch of light. But for video, this thing does great. And now I will bring this with me whenever I go shoot sports. This will be my B camera. This will probably have a 23mm on there, or something of the sort, for me to be able to take some photos, just move around. Maybe this will hold the 90mm 1.2. This is gonna be great for a sport like baseball, you know, where I don't have to really do anything, or wide angle shots where I can stop down to 5.6 in some areas and be able to shoot a whole area, and at 35mm, kind of get a corner where they're gonna do a corner kick, things like that. That's where this can come in handy as a B camera when taking photos, or again, when you're taking photos, doing portrait shoots, when you're doing engagement shoots, when you're doing maybe you're doing some culinary photos, some advertisement photos, things where you're controlling the environment and the movement of the subject. This thing is going to come in handy. But whenever it comes to sports, for me, it's not that great. But if I'm talking about video only, this camera is still doing amazing, and I have to say, I'm pleasantly surprised. Again, are there times where I miss my XH1s and I wish I had it? Yeah, there actually are times where I wish I had the XH1, most primarily just so I could have a nice backup camera for photography. But that's not the reason I bought this. Anything like that is more of a luxury than anything else. So the Fujifilm X-T2, in my book, especially if you can deck it out like this, where I went overkill with it, but it's necessary for me. This is a fantastic purchase. They still have a purchase. I see these on Facebook Marketplace. Lin-Manuel Miranda, you guys, you know, if you're Fred Miranda fans, that's funny as hell. You know, I see these on eBay going for around anywhere from $400, $425 to $600. Sometimes with a grip for $600 to $700. That is a steal, especially if you just need something to shoot photo, for talking head, for documentary. If you're going to be autofocusing, like me personally, I'm looking at a couple Rokinon lenses to be able to use with this, so that I can do a little bit better whenever it comes to my cinema photography and getting some shots. But that's all I have to say about this. The Fujifilm X-T2 is still a fantastic lens, not only for fantastic camera, not only for the money, but just regardless. This is a camera that shoots 4K, it shoots 1080, it shoots F-Log, it has long run times, and even more, you've got weather sealing and you've got an amazing battery grip that's included with it. The day that the X Pro line comes out with a battery grip for the X Pro bodies, I'll lose my shit, because that's all that I need for that thing to be my one and only everything camera. But until then, I'll keep rocking with the X-T2, or until it doesn't meet my needs. But for all intents and purposes, for the professional work that I'm doing, which I'm getting paid, for those of you guys that are going to be in the comments talking shit, I'm getting paid, so you can show me your pay stubs for the professional work you've done, and if it hasn't reached around $8,000 in about 4 months, then don't at me. But this right here is going to handle everything I need to do, handle professionally, and it's getting good results, and everyone's pretty happy with them for the people I'm working for. So that's it for this. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and have a good one.